You're welcome back to Newsfile. And the story that Kukubaku was referring to on my Joy Online that is being talked about as that part of this project is to have the drones deliver election materials or ballot papers, and the suspicions that are being raised about it. I have been shown a link to the Ministry of Health, the Ghana Health Service. The Ghana Health Service website, and there's a story there, Ministry of Health signs MOU to deploy drone technology for efficient health delivery. And they are reporting the Vice President talking about this. And then at one point, they say, speaking earlier in the day at the 2018 edition of the Ministry of Health and Partners Health Summit, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia had indicated that government was exploring innovative ways, including the use of drone technology to make universal health care available to every Ghanaian in a timely manner, irrespective of location. Then there is this line. According to officials, Ghana will become the first country in West Africa and the largest in the world to use such a delivery system when it is fully deployed. The system can also be employed to deliver other items such as urgent letters, examination papers, and election materials such as ballot papers officials maintain. So it is not said anywhere that the current agreement is intended to include for purposes of, as it were, shipping or picking ballot materials. So those who are running that suspicion, go to the Ghana Health Service website and read how the story was done. Simply telling you about the basic things that drone technology is used to do. Right. So I'll be sharing some of your messages on the subject of the drones, but let's now move to our next issue. And it has to do with the new debate in town. It's engaged quite a number of people in the course of the week. And it's about, it came about as a result of the NPP's Ashanti Regional Chairman, Wontumi, suggesting, his name, suggesting that he was going to sue, go to the court, Supreme Court or somewhere, and ask for Mahama to be stopped from seeking to lead the NDC and to become president. According to him, he was ineligible to contest elections. Now, some legal experts have been sharing their views, and among others have suggested that he could actually go for 2 terms if he won. Okay, let's begin this with Dr. Aine. I suspect that President Mahama would have sought advice, perhaps not from you, but from a team of legal advisors to come to the conclusion that he's eligible to contest elections, losing after serving 1 term. What do you say about the claim that he may have finished and does not have the opportunity to continue? And again, about what we are learning now, the suggestions and interpretations that if he was even eligible to do a full term, as in 2 terms, a full tenure.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Samson. In the intro, you made reference to a threat by the NPP Ashanti Regional Chairman that he's going to go to the Supreme Court and seek a declaratory relief to the effect that the former president is ineligible to run. And I think that probably will be one of the most ridiculous, Supreme Court suits to have been filed. I say ridiculous because it is very clear that the framers of the Constitution intended that the term limits should be for 2 terms, which means that cumulatively 8 years. In other words, no president or no person who has served in the office of president may exceed 8 years, except in the situation where a vice president succeeds a president who has either died or resigned, and that president has done in excess of the, first half of his term in office, and the vice president then, succeeds him. In those circumstances, it is very likely that a vice president could do up to a maximum of 9.5 years if he then wins successive 2 terms, in office. But apart from that situation, the limit is, 8 years. And I have here with me the report of the Committee of Experts on the Constitution, on a proposal for a draft constitution for Ghana, which is, the SKB Asante Committee of Experts. And basically what the committee said was, at paragraph 32, it says the committee recommends the retention of the limitation of the presidential term to 2 terms. Each term should be 4 years. So the fact that a person has been in office for 1 term and has lost an election does not necessarily mean that the person cannot seek re-election. But after the person has been re-elected, so in 2020 or 2021, when President Mahama is sworn into office, he can have only 1 more term. That is the correct constitutional view. And on the issue of whether or not he has sought legal advice, I am not aware if he has sought any. However,
no, the issue had been so prominent, and many people were asking that question, and there were some who were even suggesting that some will deliberately wait for him to get the ticket of the NDC,
right,
and then they'll go to the court and scuttle.
And all this was before he declared.
Yes, even before he did. That they'll scuttle his attempts.
Well, I was just going to say that I'm sure the former president would probably have sought legal advice on this. I am not aware if he definitely has. But the NDC legal team has actually been, scouring the internet and taking down every view that has been, noting down every view that has been expressed on this matter.
Okay.
And we are preparing and waiting, because you never know when somebody can, take this matter up before the Supreme Court. But from all indications, I don't think that this is a matter that the Supreme Court itself, will give much attention to, because it is very, very clear that, 2 terms means 2 terms. Okay, there's no reason why the court can read into the language of the Constitution anything about, consecutive terms or cumulative terms and so on and so forth. And I think that, any attempt to take this matter before the Supreme Court will be a very much a waste of the court's time.
Okay, you are using the reports that led to the making of the Constitution to guide you, and our law says that this is how we get to explain certain things that we don't understand, and even the court will use that to explain.
That is true.
Does it say emphatic? And that's become one other issue, emphatic, that once you have served the 2 4-year terms of 8 years, a tenure, you are forever barred from the opportunity of becoming a president?
Well, it doesn't say so. The report itself has not said so in so many ways. But if you look at paragraph 32, it says that the committee recommends the retention of the limitation of the presidential tenure to 2 terms. I think that they should inform any interpretation of Article 66 of the Constitution, because it is the primary constitutional document, the basis for the formulation of the proposals of the Constitution. And because the Constitution itself doesn't say that when a person has done 2 terms, they are forever barred from, contesting, doesn't necessarily mean that we can read that language into the text of the Constitution in order to justify, somebody running for a 3rd term or for a 4th term. Now, where did we get this from? In terms of democratic practice,
right?
We got it from Article 22, that is of the U.S. Constitution. That is the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And this 22nd Amendment came about as a result of the fact that after the 1787 convention, Philadelphia Convention, where actually the framers of the Constitution are taught that they could, provide for life tenure for presidents, and then they finally came to the conclusion that life tenure would be, in fact, the vote was put, and then the vote was lost by, 6-4 at that convention for the institutionalization of life tenures. And when the Constitutional Convention adopted the U.S. Constitution, for 160 years, okay, the U.S. Constitution had no term limits. So it was President Washington and later on Jefferson who, started the convention of exiting after 2 terms. Because according to Washington in particular, he said, look, if I have done 2 terms, it is, only good for us to bring fresh thinking to the presidency. So let me exit and then someone else take over. So that convention, was what guided their presidency until FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, in the mid 1900s, okay, did 4 terms and actually died in office. And then the thought came that Congress said, look, we need to do something about term limits. And that is how come that in 1951, the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, was passed.
Okay.
And it is true, we have modeled our, provisions in accordance with, Article 22 of the U.S. Constitution. Right. And as a matter of practice in the U.S., it is now understood that 2 terms of, 4 years each mean 2 terms of 4 years each. That is cumulatively 8 years and no more.
Right. Now, this a very comfortable zone. your comfort zone, Mr. Abuchi.
Is it?
Right. Your recent book, I've read quite a bit of it, but have you treated Article 66?
No.
Okay. Now,
so 2nd edition.
Right. Now, why should there be any controversy at all about Article 66 being clear as regards limitation? Should there be any controversy at all? And do you suspect anybody who goes to the Supreme Court will suffer what has happened recently, where they said, don't come and waste our time? The Constitution, Article 5, is very clear, and it mandates the president to receive a petition for creation of new regions. When he does so, he takes it to the Council of State. When the process is completed, there is a commission. When the commission does the job, the commission has been instructed to also name or determine the places where the referendum will be conducted. So don't come to this court and waste our time because of your own lack of understanding and confusion. Is that what you suspect might happen if anybody went to court over this matter?
First of all, Samson, this is one of the clearest, in my opinion, one of the clearest provisions in the Constitution. And it's probably part of the reason I didn't treat it, because it's just so clear, in my opinion. However, constitutional text may appear so clear on the face, but someone can still identify a controversy, and I think that is what we're seeing. Now, the Supreme Court has stated very clearly that it is only interested by its jurisprudence. It has stated very clearly, and you know that it is only interested in cases that involve serious controversies, not created controversies. With the greatest respect to my friend or whoever it's, bringing this controversy up, and it's good. I mean, every conversation or discussion is good. It brings us to a point of, or points of new ideas. So I'm not trying to belittle the intelligence at all. I should be forgiven if that's the impression. But the point I'm making is we have a lot of things to talk about in this country, and I think that some things are just so clear. Actually, this provision, 66, 67, these provisions are one of the most expansive provisions. In other words, the framers of the Constitution spoke in very clear terms, and then they went ahead to indicate alternative options in the event that certain events do happen. That is why I have difficulty even talking about it, and I think Dominic has done a good job telling us, for example, about this in terms of in comparative perspective. And I have always worried about constitutional borrowings. And this is one of the instances of constitutional borrowing without much contextual thinking. Because I have said, and I still believe and still stand by that, that we frankly do not even need terms. I think we need one term. Because everybody in this country will agree that the first terms of presidents have been used to prepare for second terms. It's been like that for a long time in this country. And decisions are almost always distorted by the preparation for the second term. I would have gone, if we're giving them 8 years, give them all the 8 years. Let them do 8 years for one term. I would have gone for 5 years, for example, for one term. There are those who argued that what if we are not blessed with a good president? And then you gave him so many years and then we're stuck with him. 4 years is also a long time to be stuck with a president you don't want. So in terms of principle, the argument is not answered by merely worrying about us being stuck with a certain president we don't like, and therefore if we give them a long time, we are stuck with them for one particular
And you know
period.
you can never get an impeachment in this country.
Well, so
unless where it happens
So
that the minority,
Yeah.
the majority in the parliament
Are the ones initiating.
are the ones in the opposition.
correct. So I can understand that it's a balancing of situations, and that's why let's give them 4 years, and then let them come back for a renewal of mandates. But I'm just saying that per experience, I think we have the benefit of hindsight now. The constitutional framers probably believed too much in our good senses of doing things, and I think the benefit of experience and practice has shown that our first terms or the first terms of presidents are too distorted, often distorted by the desire for a second term. And so there are so much responses to all kinds of political pressures that tend to distort, if you like, good judgment.
So you confirm that President Mahama is entitled to only one more term, 4 years.
I haven't answered my question yet.
Okay.
I have made preliminary comments on this. Sorry if it's too long. But let me just, at this stage.
It's a good one for innovation, for change.
I think we can still consider this. Even though if you ask me, I'm not sure there's political appetite, or there will be political appetite for that. But I think going for a 5-year term or a 6-year term, 6 years, that's till you come, you have a mandate, you deliver. After 6 years, you're a statesman. But this idea of doing 4 years, and then you come back again, if you put me there, chances are that I'll be distorted by the pressures of having to prepare myself for the second term. And therefore, good and sound policies may be distorted by political expediency. And I think it's a reality.
If it is good and sound policies you are looking for, and to be able to focus and ensure, smooth development for the people to benefit from the democracy, then why don't we take the line of the Constitution Review Commission view on leaders or heads of independent constitutional bodies? That we put them there. If you are EC chair, if you are NCC chair, and those people, Shraj, boss, you should be there for 10 years, one term. That's all. Why don't we give presidents one term, 1 year, 10 years?
Well, we are giving them 2 terms for 8 years. To give them 1 term for 10 years will be counterintuitive. We will actually go against the very principle for even the 2 terms. But I would say that give them 1 term which goes beyond 4 years.
Okay.
Let's face it, 4 years is a short time to execute a major mandate. And so if you give them 4 years, often by the time they have gone through the first 2 years, which is often transitional for many presidents, especially first-time presidents, now having to adjust, put in place a team, deal with all the chaos going on. Before they know it, 2 years is already gone. They have 2 years now to execute their mandate. By the time the 2 years is over, they have not gone anywhere near the promises they've made. Therefore, they now have to ask for a renewal of mandate. Often there are distortions, and the distortions are in the form of pressures.
Okay.
And we all know this.
We don't have a political off-season.
If you don't do this for me, we are not going to vote for you. And that's why we've had people at Makola, for example. They are sacked from the streets. Very close to elections, they are back.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that story, for example. We have all kinds of pressures that are put on the president, and he's literally blackmailed. If you don't do this for us, we're going to vote against you.
Projects are executed with elections
in mind. So we have politically oriented, if you like, governance, which often distort good projects.
So do you confirm or you do not that President Mahama is entitled to 1 4-year term.
And that's the point I'm coming to. And I would always want to start from the principle. I think maybe because I'm in the classroom, sometimes I don't like this specific, because sometimes you just tend to, look, it doesn't answer the question until you deal with the principle. Again, I think Dominic spoke about that. Let's look at the rationale. The framers of the Constitution decided to give each and every one 2 terms. And they spoke clearly about that in Article 66 too. Everybody has 2 terms. They did not mention consecutive. They just said 2 terms. What it means is that you can choose to have a holiday. So you can come for one election. You can decide, I'm not even standing for the next one. I'm going to have some holiday, some leave, get some sanity, and then you come back some other time to contest. It doesn't have to be consecutive. At the same time, they have gone ahead in a particular provision to indicate that in the event that you are a vice president, and then your substantive president...
So the 66(2) that you refer to, let's read it for our viewers and listeners. It says that a person shall not be elected to hold office as president of Ghana for more than 2 terms. For more than 2 terms. End of story.
Correct.
Okay, let's go.
Correct. That you shall not hold office for more than 2 terms. The limitation is on 2 terms. It doesn't have to be consecutive. If it is consecutive, you have it. If it's not consecutive, you have the option of coming back. I think President Mahama is in a peculiar position. The reason he's in a peculiar position is because he's actually the first person to have had this experience. I.e. become president, and then not having become president at the next trial, and then wanting to become president again. So there's been a break. All the others have had, I think, 2 terms, save President Mills, who by nature was just not available to complete even his term. So the point I'm making is that the constitutional framers have given you the option of 2 terms. As to whether you have them together or you break them and come back for them, it's not indicated. And in my opinion, it is for a good reason. And the good reason is that you can have the choice. Because you may run out of ideas. You can even decide to go back, reconstitute yourself and come back. It's a decision. It's an option that is left to you. Now, where you have succeeded to somebody's term, as happened in the case of former President Mahama, you did not actually have your term. So what the constitutional framers have done is to say, where you exceed 2 years, i.e. half, they didn't even use the word here, but they said, where you exceed half of your term in office, then you may have been deemed to have actually had a full term. But where you do not exceed half of that, then that would not count as a term. Now, there's a reason for that. The reason for that is the decision to become president is an elective decision, i.e. you elect to become president, and then the people endorse your election. When you succeed to the office of president by reason of being the vice president, it's a default occupation. It is not your choice. It is default. And therefore, when he was vice president, he had no option to say that I would not succeed to former President Mills's office. I don't want. He had no option. It is an automatic constitutional provision, and therefore the only option you have if you don't want to do that is to resign as vice president. So you would have been entrusted into the office of president by default. Therefore, the framers of the Constitution are not going to force you to be disabled by reason of eligibility when you occupy the position by way of default. So we have the elective office. The elective office is when you choose to become president. And then we have the default office. And the default office is when he became president by reason of being vice president without a choice. And so when you become president by reason of the default option, then you are only disabled if you go beyond 2 years. And the reason for that is you have actually literally enjoyed the full term once you enjoyed it beyond half of the term. But if you enjoyed it under half of the term, then the default option is actually counted as proper default for purposes of this not binding you in terms of your own eligibility to make a decision. So the point I'm making is the claim. So the claim
for this to
is wrong.
And
the rebuttal is wrong. The rebuttal is the other extreme, i.e. that he can stand for multiple terms. That's
for this to, if I may just read for perspective, Article 66 and 7, perhaps. 66 says that whenever the president dies, resigns, or is removed from office, the vice president shall assume office as president for the unexpired term of office of the president with effect from the date of the death, resignation, or removal of the president. And then 67 says, where the unexpired term served by the vice president under clause 6 of this article exceeds half the term of the president, the vice president is subsequently only eligible to serve one full term as president.
It is the reason I said it's one of the clearest provisions in the Constitution. Because the Constitution actually, there are many instances where there are so many gaps in the Constitution.
Served, the unexpired term of President Mills was less than half.
From my counting, unless I got
it was only 6 months.
July.
It was
I
only
think
6 months.
Yeah, a little,
6 months.
Yeah.
So it was clearly it was clearly less than half. The Constitution. This is one of the few instances in the Constitution where I think the framers actually took their time to make things clear.
Okay.
Because of our history.
It says, and part of it, exactly because of our history. Because and I think I don't want to say as a country or as a people we like to be in office for long. So I think
you don't want to say things that you have been saying.
Well,
he says I don't want to say, and he
well,
says,
I don't want to say.
I asked him whether he thought that if you put this before the court, they would do what they just did a couple of weeks ago and say, please don't come to us with your own confusion and misunderstanding.
Right.
Self-inflicted misunderstanding. Can I have Kokubako share his view now? But I was interested in this too. There are people who are saying that, have we thought about the fact that the former vice president becoming president and now wanting to be president is presently enjoying the office of the president's benefits?
No.
Not varied.
Well, it doesn't make anything. It doesn't. First of all, he's saying he's not, but I'm
so
not.
He's paid.
I'm not aware of that.
He's paid.
He's paid as a former president.
Right.
And the Article 71 committee that decided the emoluments do not equate his salary to that of a sitting president.
But
what
his
does the
salary,
Constitution say?
whatever he gets,
that is supreme.
will not be less than what he was getting.
No,
yes,
that is true.
Right.
So
what
they
does
cannot
the
be varied,
Constitution say?
to
his
his
disadvantage.
But he's
So
being
you are
paid.
right about
Is he
that
being
one.
paid as former president?
Yes.
He's being paid as former
former
president. But he is a former president, and that's why I'm saying some things are not even subject to debate.
Okay.
Once you cease to be an office holder, you are entitled, per the president and being former president, he's entitled to all the emoluments of former presidents.
Okay.
If he becomes president again, they cease immediately.
All right.
Yeah.
Waiting for his next retirement. So the point, I don't think that
If he fails to become president, nothing is truncated.
Nothing changes.
Okay,
he still
interesting.
continues
Thank
to
you
enjoy
very
the
much.
benefits.
Yes, Kuku. And Kuku has been reading the from a
I
political
found
to a
some
developmental constitution,
very
the CRC
intriguing
report.
things in the CRC report.
Right.
But before I come to there, you see, this issue of 2 terms, it was raised, and as my brother Ayini has referred to, the Committee of Experts report. It was done there. They put the limit there. At the Consultative Assembly, the Committee on Powers of Government actually rejected that and tried to make some of the arguments Mr. Abuchi has made here. They wanted to increase it to 5, and but after a debate, it was rejected, and the committee's thing was retained. Now, specific to Wontumi, when you target President Mahama in this contest, I think that was dead on arrival. Targeting President Mahama, you needed to study the Constitution. Serving the unexpired period of President Mills was, as we have indicated here, less than 7 months, maximum 7 months. You read the Constitution carefully, you would not even dream of raising that issue. I have to be very honest with you. Unless you want to engage in some legal masturbation,
Galamsey.
Yes.
It's better to use Atugube's
yes, I like that one. So I was really taken aback, because when you want to raise this kind of level, issue to that level, you must, discuss with some people who have the legal expertise, or competence, rather. So that was out. But in reading the Constitutional Review report, I realized that there are also some intriguing aspects, and this is not related to the Wundt meeting. See, I would need, and I'm happy Mr. Abuchi and Ayini are here. They made a very interesting point about a former president who has served 2 terms, possibly coming back to run for the office, that is, as a vice president. Can I read this part?
Okay.
It says, this is paragraph 74. It says the commission also observes that under Article 68(2) of the 1992 Constitution, a former president cannot hold any office of profit or emolument, either directly or indirectly, in any establishment. To do so, he needs the permission of Parliament. This provision, however, accepts establishments of the state. Thus, the restriction here is targeting establishments in the private sector. This means that a former president, and this is the key area, is eligible to hold any high public offices, including being a vice president, Speaker of Parliament, or Member of Parliament, since these offices are state establishments. There is a real likelihood of a former president to return as president after serving 2 full terms. I find this confusing, to be honest. Can I finish? Then you can,
yes,
because I'm seeking education. This is possible where a former president contests elections and gets elected as vice president. Then as president, where the president resigns, is removed from office or dies. Do you get a point? And so then they recommend that the Constitution be amended to make it clear that a person who has been president for 2 terms of 4 years shall not qualify to stand for re-election as president.
We can always
Okay, so
amend.
Dr. Eric Oduro Osae has been raising this issue also in the course of the week, and there are many people who think he's weird in his legal interpretation.
we can
I thought
always,
so too, till I read this.
Right.
We can always amend the Constitution and all kinds of things. You know, it's okay. I only worry about having a very big and bulky Constitution. But some things are not necessary, with the greatest respect again to the Commission, and I did some work with the Commission. But the reality is this. The President who has served his full term, 2 full terms as president, is disabled and ineligible to stand for any other office through which he may have to, he may enter the office of president by default.
Yeah, but the commission doesn't think so.
No, but that's what I'm saying. No, but
The
by
Constitution
logic,
too
by the
does not
structure,
say so.
The Constitution does
but
not say so too.
No, the Constitution says so. The Constitution doesn't have to
Silently
say
says so. That's what you mean.
The Constitution doesn't have to say it in the words.
Okay.
But the Constitution has said so by the structure, i.e., if you are president who has served a full term and you try serving as vice president, what that means is that in the event of the death or resignation of the president, you may become a default president who may have to end up serving more than 2 years. More than 2 years. And once you serve the more than 2 years, i.e., you would have served a full term by the
But what if
Constitution.
it's less than 2 years?
If it's less than 2 years, but why do we have to give you that possibility?
So on this other leg, the Wuntun one is dead.
No, it's dead.
Right. But on this other leg, there's a controversy that it does appear it will take the Supreme Court to nail it.
But that's not why Wuntun is going to the Supreme
Yeah, I know.
Court.
I know.
That's not what Wuntun is.
We know that. Yeah.
But you know, I
Briefly, let's hear
I remember looking at this aspect of it, what my brother Kufour has just read out. But I think it is a very absurd position. I mean, with all due respect to the Commission, it's a very absurd position. Absurd because you are now creating a situation where your interpretation of a state office will now negate Article 66(2) of the Constitution by simply making it possible for a the president to come back in the guise of a vice president and then subsequently, you know, take over as president. Even then, Abochi has pointed out quite clearly that this roundabout way of, circumventing the provisions of Article 66(2) of the Constitution, okay, is explicitly against the language of the Constitution itself.
All right.
Okay.
But is there anything that bars the former president from contesting as MP, like he pointed from the Constitution Review's report?
Is there any explicit
For
bar?
MP, I don't think there's any.
Yeah, but even for the vice president to hold a position, is there any direct categorical denial, a bar?
Sorry, but quickly, the reason.
No, I see the absurdity, and I appreciate it.
I see a problem too.
Supposing he becomes Speaker of Parliament.
No, but that's the thing. You see, I'm just saying that all offices, so I didn't say just the vice president, but all offices by which you can become the president by default. So for me, that's it.
Shut.
Yeah. They are shut on you. And the reason is because all offices by which you can become the president by default means that at any given point in time, you may act as the president.
Right.
For speaker, someone may argue that you can become that because the worst case scenario is that you can only become an acting president. But for vice president, it's not acting president. You actually become substantive president.
Sure. Okay.
Substantive president pending elections and normalization.
Okay,
So the vice
but
president is just out
you
now.
see the rationale, something. Just a quick one before Nana Komia comes in. The rationale for exempting the state offices from the office of profit, or I mean, is because you want to make the experience and expertise of the president available to the state at any point in time. So, for instance, if he becomes a member of the Council of State, or he's appointed to head a commission of inquiry and such like bodies, in order to bring his expertise as president, to the benefit of the public. Okay, so that is the reason why it is exempted. I don't think that it was the intention of the makers of the Constitution to make it possible for us to circumvent Article 66
Thank you.
of the Constitution.
Thank you. Koko, are you done?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm done.
That was such a master stroke. It was good for us to help us look at this matter more in that context. Yes.
Well, thank
Nana?
you. Thank you, Samson. This debate is so needless. I don't know.
Once again, as the drones debate, you said it was needless.
But it originated from the Ashanti region.
All of this business about the American example and the Constitutional Review Committee and all of that are completely unnecessary. And the proceedings of the committee that drafted the Constitution are unnecessary.
Hey, you can't say that.
The only thing that is necessary is this book.
Yeah, but in dealing with this at the Supreme Court, they will go to reference all these things.
Right.
This is it. When there's ambiguity.
Okay, so can we take your take on
when there's ambiguity, where there's no ambiguity, why is the Supreme Court going to look for the thinking of people?
In writing the judgment,
here, this is it. The operative clauses are very short. It says on page 46, where it talks about the vice president and the presidency. And we've talked about it, where the president dies and the vice president succeeds, but the term of office is less than half. It is not regarded as a full term.
Right.
President Mahama succeeded President Mills and spent 6 months or 7 months. That is less than half. So it's not a full term.
If he had done more than 2 years,
then it's a full term. He didn't do more than 2 years. So it's not a full term. So that matter is dead. The other significant clause is the Article 63, and very short, says you shall be elected, a person elected subject to clause 3, we just talked about. Clause 3 is about the oath. Now, when you are elected as president, you shall hold office for 4 years. And then it goes on to say that the person elected to hold office as president, the person shall not be elected. Shall. So there's no room for any maneuver. You cannot be president for more than 2 terms. That's what it says. Okay. The only exception is if you came in as vice president. But even that one, it says if you serve more than 2 years. So it's a totally needless debate. And the Constitution is so clear, unambiguous.
I think you should give to me a telephone call.
Now, these...
No, but beyond Woon to me, you would know that within your party, even there are lawyers.
Yeah.
There are lawyers
and Nana, there's something that is called nuisance suits. Okay, they will just take it up. They don't care what it is, but as long as it gives them opportunity to, take a dig at John Mahama, they will do it.
Now, let me deal with that one. My party, and elements in my party, the collateral effect is that we may then be seen as a party. We suffer this, even though it's not an NPP policy, but because there are elements of the NPP, this kind of actions may be seen as the NPP being afraid of a John Mahama candidature. And that would empower the NDC. Because in real terms, President Mahama's candidature presents the easiest option for the NPP.
That's what you think.
It presents the easiest option for the NPP. John Mahama will be easier to defeat than any of the other candidates. And for a very simple reason. If you brought in Abambagbe or Sylvester Mensah or any of them, they can come and capitalize on the perceived omissions of the Akufo-Addo presidency and also come and make all kinds of lofty claims. And we'll have nothing to hold them by. But in the case of a President Mahama candidature, if he says he's going to do A, B, C, there is the track record of what he said and what he did or could not do during the term that he was president. There's that track record. So a John Mahama Akufo-Addo contest would be the record of Akufo-Addo presidency against the record of the John Mahama presidency.
And that's what some analysts say, that Akufo-Addo can't stand.
Akufo-Addo has not finished.
Because when it comes to the questions of the infrastructural record, which is very important to the voters, then he will have...
You check the timelines.
He will have little to show as against John Mahama.
Check the timelines.
Okay.
Specific infrastructure.
They won't do that. They will combine all the NDC period and say John Mahama.
So 8 years of NDC, 8 years of Mills Mahama, because some of those projects began under Mills.
Okay, right.
And even got completed in 2016.
Much as I agree with my brother.
Can I finish? Can I finish? There you can come.
So why is it that when you could finish interjection, you don't
now,
say your
because you do it too you do it too frequently. Now, something. You see, even this matter of infrastructure and so on doesn't arise because Akufo-Addo has not finished his term of the presidency. And indeed, he himself has said that the best is yet to come. So let's wait and see what Akufo-Addo will do over the next 2 years. And also, the John Mahama record is not just about infrastructure, because it is in the light of all of this supposed infrastructure that he suffered the heaviest defeat of an incumbent president probably in Africa. It's in the light of this so-called achievements that the Ghanaian people rejected by the heaviest margin against an incumbent president, probably in the whole Africa. So what is that record? How do you estimate that record?
Okay.
So for me, if you brought a President Mahama, I'm happy, because then we're just going to dig up his record. So if he came and said, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, we'll go back to his record. Recently, he had said something about the economy. The NP people went and brought something he had said on some interview. And it made what he had said a bit shaky, because he had said something in an interview that he himself was contradicting when they were put side by side. So elements of the NPP should be careful about doing things that can be interpreted as the NPP being afraid of a John Mahama presidency.
But,
the NPP,
but for as long as what is being done gets some people in the NDC, particularly in the rural communities, to be worried, it benefits the NPP, because the worry is that he can't become president and there's no point voting for him. And the campaign is that, well, if you did, he becomes president and there may be a suit that will remove him because it
will be unsustainable.
I think we...
An unsustainable campaign.
Those of us who have done a little campaign, we learn never to underestimate the ability of the voter. Never to do that. If you do that, you do that at your peril.
Okay.
If you imagine that this Ghanaian voter, when I hadn't started primary school, he was being described as the most sophisticated electorate in Africa. Way back in the 70s, the Ghanaian voter. So if you went there and thought that a lot of governments come and do propaganda, and they say, oh, the rural folk, this thing, if you don't go and respond, the rural folk, the rural folk, the rural folk. Look at the votes of the rural folks against in the last election. So we shouldn't underestimate them. Okay. For me, the NPP should be praying quietly for President Mahama to emerge. When he emerges, or if he emerges, because of his record, anything that he comes to promise the Ghanaian electorate will have a reference point. And it will be an easier contest than if you brought in a fresh person who would then now come and come with a clean sheet and make all kinds of promises, and you wouldn't have anything to hold him by.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Can I respond briefly to...
just a minute. So we take a break and come back and see whether Galamsey is over from Monday. Right. Yes,
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, the point that he's made about John Mahama being an easier candidate to beat, I think that the reason why all this talk is being generated is because John Mahama is a candidate that will give them a run for their money. Is a candidate that will make it difficult, you know, for them to win the next election. The reason is simply because, as he himself has admitted, currently Ghanaians are doing a head-to-head comparison. Yes, there may be things that were done that were not right in the past, but there were things that were done that were also right in the past that Ghanaians are now longing for. So you listen to the ordinary people and they are saying, when Mahama was there, things were not like this. And I think that is very important for purposes of the next election.
Okay.
You did a survey to that effect.
All right.
You did a survey.
Okay, so the consensus on this show, from this show, is that this is moot. As far as the first leg of it, now raised by Wuntumi is concerned, like Kufour say, dead on arrival. We'll be right back.